Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside
and outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Christina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Kathi Sohn. In 2020, Kathi retired from her first career of 36 years with the U.S. Defense Department. Widowed in 2019, Kathi decided to devote her life to sharing the powerful work her beloved husband created, the body memory process for discovering and releasing childhood trauma and beliefs. Kathi wrote a best-selling book on the body memory process, You Made It Up, Now Stop Believing It, released in 2023. This powerful book provides background information via interesting case studies and the entire body memory process for childhood vow discovery and release. She is now a speaker and coach who is dedicated to mitigating the cycle of intergenerational trauma. Welcome, Kathi. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you also for joining us. Yeah, it's one of those things that whenever I started looking at your bio and things and finding you to come on the show, we had another summit that we were on, right? You were on one part of the summit and we were on another part of the summit. I'm like, you know what? A lot of people talk about this thing called the generational trauma. And we want to make sure that our kids aren't labeled or saddled with all the things that we put up with all over the place as we were growing up. And part of Vibrant Family Education is that whole child, making sure that whole child is getting the best education and the best step forward. So that was one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show. So with that, would you tell us kind of that pivotal point? What was it that happened that made this your passion, that you need to bring this information to families and to help children so much?
Sure. Well, when I first learned about this work, I was about halfway through my federal career of that 36 years. And it was when my husband-to-be was introduced to me. He was the one who pioneered the body memory process. I'll just maybe for 1 or 2 minutes just speak just to honor him. Again, I lost him a few years ago. But if it weren't for him, of course, I wouldn't be here now. And when I talk about the pivotal point, it'll be about a personal experience of mine, with the work. So David created the work out of his own a big trauma in his childhood being a near-death experience. He had double staph pneumonia. The doctors didn't know how to cure it. Yeah, he was 13 years old. And he was pronounced dead, and he was without pulse and respirations for a period of time. I don't remember exactly the second thing. I remember he told me, and I can't remember exactly how long it was, but it was long enough that everybody thought he was gone. And then his dad noticed something on the monitor or something, and he was back. And David said that for the next years, he came back really feeling he had a real personal spiritual experience as a near-death. He remembers things, and he said that he knew he had something important to do. That's why he came back. And he discovered it really kind of naturally out of his journey around wellness. So the doctors always told him that he would not ever be truly well, and that he wouldn't be able to live a really active life because the disease had left scar tissue in his lungs. And now that wasn't the case at all. David did amazing things with us. He was led a very active life, and even up into his later years in life, he was still very, very much, until he got ill. He was very, very, very active, more than a lot of others his age. And he said that he wanted to know what really was wellness, since the doctors told him he couldn't be. And through his own personal study, and he studied really broadly. It was the time period of the human potential movement in the 80s, and some great research was going on by people like Dr. Candace Pert, who wrote Molecules of Emotion. She was the first scientist to prove the mind-body connection, because she discovered that during traumatic events, neurotransmitters travel to receptors all over the body. And so she's quoted as saying, trauma puts down deep roots in the body, and that your body is your subconscious mind. So she did some incredible work came out of that. So the mind-body connection was one pillar of him creating the work. Another one was just the power of belief, which we're all familiar with from religion, and they were just the wisdom handed through the ages and just personal experience. And the third was based on some research that Dr. David Chamberlain was doing around that period of time, and Dr. Thomas Burney, about the consciousness of babies in the womb and at birth, and of those first 70 years of life, and how critical they are of us making up our operating programs, as Dr. Bruce Lipton calls them, about ourselves, about others, and about life. So David created the work, and he worked with clients for over 30 years and pulled together this huge body of knowledge, even a body map based on where these, and I'll explain vows in a moment. Beliefs and vows is kind of interchangeable, but vows has a nuance I want to explain in a moment. But when people would come and work with him, it would be like, okay, I've got, say it was something going on with tension in their shoulders or something like that. They would almost always have a vow, a belief related to communication, like nobody listens to me, nobody ever listens to me, or nobody cares what I have to say, or something like that. And there of the almost 1,000 vows that I basically have inherited from his work, they're all can be correlated. I have a map now in an Excel workbook that has this correlation, and just amazing stuff that came from the work. Now the pivotal moment for me, and this is why one main reason why this work is so important for me to bring to the world, especially to kids, is my own personal experience of the work. And that was out of my own I really had a lot of difficulty as a kid, and then when I became a manager, standing in front of a group of people. Now you could say, well, everybody has that, it's a real common fear of speaking, but this was really deep. And what I experienced, I always was able to kind of pull it off. Like people would say, oh, you didn't look that nervous, but inside it was great turmoil. And I realized that I needed to figure out what was going on, or it wasn't going to be good for my health. So right around that time that David came along, I was deciding that I needed to do something about it. When I learned about his work, I was like, gee, maybe I could use the work. And to summarize the work, what it does is it helps people to discover what those beliefs are, those vows. And David referred to them as vows because, like wedding vows, they're a promise, but not to someone else, to ourselves. Like, this is how, I'm going to, and it's not a conscious promise, right? It's in our body memory. It's in our subconscious that I'm going to live my life this way. So if I don't think anybody cares what I have to say, then I'm not going to take a risk of putting myself out there, right? That type of thing. So when I did the work, which again was the discovery workaround, which is a process outlined in the book, which we can talk about in a little bit. There's a discovery process, then there's also a release process. So I did the discovery work, and then I did the release work, and then everything really changed for me. What I discovered was that which I already knew, was that I was very premature. But what I discovered about it was that because I was in an incubator for a period of time, I was critically watched by the medical staff. And I'll give away my age. It was 1961. So, they really didn't think I was going to make it. So if you think about, here I am, a little baby, and if with all the work, again, the science behind it, which again is explained in the book about how we're connected and about in an energetic way, and all of that emotional stuff, I didn't understand the words, but I was able to perceive that people didn't think I was going to make it. And so here I am all these years later, and I'm standing in front of people being critically watched, and my vow is they watch me to see when I'm going to die. Because on some level, that I believe that they thought I was going to die. I wasn't going to make it. I was under 2 pounds. For goodness sakes, I was under 2 pounds back in 1961. So and of course, think of yourself, on stage. What is dying on stage? Well, I don't know. I forget what I want to say. I drop my nose. So anything just not being successful, and that people are basically the critically watching part was it. That was what was so terrifying to me, even though a lot of times I would get great feedback. It was that whole experience. So I've had this personal experience of the work where I've been able to relieve myself of that. And oh, sure, I'm like anyone else. I still get a little nervous but it's not debilitating like it used to be, because I've just, released all the energy around that by doing the work. And David didn't work with kids, but when I decided that I wanted to continue his legacy after I lost him, at first it was kind of like I wanted to do the work because I wanted to continue to honor him. But it really became more of a personal mission to me, that if we're kids when we make all this up, then it's important to reach parents with this message, because parents hold the key, right? All the way from the earliest, from right when they're carrying, all the way, mom and dad both, like how they interact, because it's about that emotional connection. Those scientists that I mentioned, Dr. Verney, Dr. Chamberlain, did write books on their work, and they found out things like if dad is not really present for some reason, either physically or just not emotionally present, that can have a big impact on the baby and a lot on the outcome as well. So I decided I wanted to just reach parents with the work, and also to reach kids directly. So this year I'm working on I'm making connections locally with the Board of Education, talking to principals to be able to get to high school assemblies, maybe even middle schools, and in a way that's age appropriate, not to hit them with a whole bunch of the scientific stuff, but to inspire and motivate them, to make them realize that self-awareness is a big key to resilience. Because when you take David's work and you kind of like, and I've done a lot of work around this, like trying to boiling it, that how can it best help people? Because it can help them with all kinds of things, because beliefs are central to everything. It really comes down to the resilience that you can have when you're deeply self-aware, because now you don't have those vows, those beliefs working against you all the time, and you're able to be more, more confident and more in charge of your own life, and not being run like something running you in through your subconscious that you're not even aware of.
That is just a absolute beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It really is just the whole journey there. So kind of down to it. Oh wow, I just had a question and it just kind of fled. That last part that you were talking about, with kids. Oh yeah, you started working with kids, and you started working with high schoolers and down to middle school, but you also talked about how around the 3 to 7 is where the main programming sets. Are you trying to also get down into that age to kind of get these foundational ideas? Because we're also of the mindset that the earlier you can intervene and get the knowledge and plant those seeds, then it can grow up with them. Because giving away my age, born in 1970, so not that different, but this vocabulary, this information, this wasn't around when it was, but it just wasn't well known.
Right.
So trying to release the traumas and get this information and do this stuff as an adult is so much more difficult than even if you just hear it and understand it as a kid and grow up with it, then it makes it easier to implement later. So
yes, I absolutely agree with you. And I haven't done it yet, but I've kind of toyed around with the idea of writing a children's book as well. But right now, mostly it's about influencing parents during those first to explaining all of this to them so that they can do some damage control. Because what I make clear, and I make this clear in the book, is that if parents aren't aware, they can reinforce something that the child has made up. Because children are, as you're aware with the work you do, you're well aware that children are sort of the center of their own world, right? Egocentric. They're not logical until 7 years or maybe some beyond, depending on the growth. And it's easy for them to sort of leap to conclusions about things that they don't even understand that they're experiencing and that they're observing, right? And so when I explain to people from the stage about childhood trauma, I make it clear that even if you think you had a happy childhood, don't just sort of brush, well, that's not about me, because you can have the happiest childhood, but you still have this trauma that comes from these beliefs that you can create because you just didn't understand. You leapt to conclusions, and it wasn't anything about what your parents did to you. It was just this mistake that you made about yourself. And when parents are conscious, right, and about all of this, they can really help. I can tell a quick story of what I think is a really great demonstration. Of course, my daughter was older than the age group, that really vulnerable age group. But still in the like beyond 7, I think she was 9 maybe when this happened. And so we create beliefs our whole life, right? It's just that beginning period when we're putting in what Dr. Lipton calls the operating programs that it happens mostly. But she always had a great palate. She loved, from the time that she could eat solid food, she wanted to eat what mom and dad were eating, right? And all. And so one day I bought her something I thought that she would like. It was a frozen dessert, some type of frozen dessert. It wasn't ice cream. It was something else that I thought she'd like. And she took one bite and said, oh, I don't like it, Mom, you can have it. And it was a little expensive and I didn't want it. It was a little sweet for me. And so I'm throwing it away in the garbage. And I said, Sarah, you must think I'm made out of money, and threw it away. And I heard my own words, right? This is the importance of being conscious as parents as much as you can. Sometimes it gets away from you, and what can you do? Right, our emotions get a little beyond us.
But we can definitely be aware of what we're doing.
Yes, certainly keep working on that. But in this moment, thankfully, I heard my own words and I thought, oh my goodness, this is where it happens, right? And so the first thing I did was go around the counter and I gave her a big hug and I said, that was not, Mom. I apologize. Mom was wrong in that. And I said, I want you to know that your opinion matters to me. It matters to me more than money. And we talked about it a little bit and we hugged and it was over. But I've written about this scenario. I think that's in the book. I've written about it in some things that I've written. And I talk about, kind of extrapolate what could happen if that was reinforced. Because once the child makes a belief, beliefs, we prove them true. That's why the book is Made It Up, Stop Believing It, because that's what perpetuates it. Because through any experience you have, it's like, you'll see, I was right. Yeah, nobody does care what I have to say, or no, my opinion doesn't matter. And, she could find herself in a job where she's not valued, right? Or maybe she's making a lot of money but she's not happy in it, but because she undervalues her own opinion or her own experience, she might sort of let herself be unhappy in that job, right? And I think there's another scenario, but it's like, no, it really can play out that way. Trying to just track it, from the creation of it all the way through how it could play out in that child's life when they become an adult or get older.
Yeah, and it's so important because, like you were saying, with just like the money thing, it also happens with education, right? You get with your child and you start talking about something and they'll say something like, oh, I'm not very good at this, or I'm not smart enough to do that. And unknowingly, we either reinforce it or we turn it around and say, no, this was just this one time. That doesn't mean that's going to happen all the time. So
Yes.
yeah, it's super, super important. So I hear kids all the time, I'm bad at math, or I'm bad at reading, or I'm bad at whatever. And it's like, well, are you really? Or were you just having a hard time learning that one part? Let's try something new. So yeah,
Yes.
all of this wraps into this way huge picture of this little thing that can be said or done or missed. And then, yeah.
Exactly. And how many times do you hear people say, I'm not creative?
Yeah.
You know, so many adults think that they're not creative. And it's like, you have to be creative because you're alive. You know, so what are you creating? You know, like, so right now you're creating a limitation by saying that you're not creative, right? I mean, we're always, our words have power, our thoughts, right? All of it, and certainly beliefs.
So let's jump into one of those tips for our parents right now. What is something that you either teach or you help parents so that they can maybe make that shift and do things a little bit different with their kids?
Yeah. So when I like to talk about the teen years, especially, right, that adolescent period where, you know, kids are just starting to figure out who they are as separate from their parents. So there's self-image, there's self-identity, and then there's image of what do I think you think I am? And there's that perception thing there. There's value, like what is my value in the world? How, you know, how competent am I? As they're starting to figure out maybe what they want to study in college, right? Oh, what do they want? What do I want to be when I grow up? So it's this great period of time when kids understand abstract concepts. They can understand all of this, but yet they're, you know, they're not out in the world in the what I call the school of hard knocks, and that they have to kind of, like you were saying, Herb, like, oh, it can be so hard, like trying to sort all this out once you're already an adult and down the road and you've already reinforced it that much. So you're getting them before they've probably done a little reinforcing, but not nearly as much. So it's this beautiful period of time to do this. And I like to tell parents that the best thing they can do is just listen. Just listen. And it's something that parents don't often do all that well, because there is this tendency, especially if there's a breakdown from the time the child is very young to, what's going on? Go to your room, or there's a lecture, or there's some type of punishment before the child even has a chance to say what was going on for them. I mean, that they're emotionally dysregulated, and then the parent is as well. And when that, in that scenario, there isn't really any problem solving going on, right? There's only emotional content. And that's the time period that's just right for the creation of these vows, is when the emotions are running. That's when Dr. Pert's bit about the neurotransmitters, they're all running, they're running to the receptors, they're carrying all that information. So it's really about, from the very beginning, you know, establishing that bond with your child. I like to use the acronym acronym CALM, like, so count, like whatever it takes, count to 5, count to 10, to create that, anything to stop you from reacting. And then ask, be curious, you know, ask what's going on, right? Then the L is listen. So then give them the time. And then the M is like, you know, make your mark, right, on what's going on, like put in that great information, let them know that they are always loved, and that whatever is going on, you know, that's okay. And so that the child can put that whole experience into a context that's, they can regulate and then have that learning and know that they're loved, and they're much less likely to have that vow experience, right, where they just sort of file it away in their body memory and then forget about it, and where later on it comes up. So if when parents are talking to their teens through whatever fun activity they want to do, baking, right, or gardening, walking, I always suggest some bonding activity to do. Then, you know, a lot of times you hear always or never show up. So that's a great opportunity to challenge. So people, I don't know, people don't think I'm like, nobody thinks I'm smart. I don't know. I'm just sort of, that's just the first one that came to my mind. Oh, tell me a time when, can you tell me about a time when you thought that somebody didn't think? Always take, whenever they say it, get them to tell you a time, get them into an experience, because then they have to, they're just that talking about it, then they get a chance to kind of evaluate, and then you can challenge it. It's like, okay, so maybe they say that somebody put them down and actually said that they were stupid. Well, can you think of another time? Well, maybe they can't, right? Or like they may think of another one, but a lot of times it's just that one that is so devastating, and it just was emotionally so, it just wrecked them so much that they get into like, nobody thinks I'm smart, or and you can also challenge. So once you get them talking about experiences, and they have a valid thing to say, well, it's because of this and this happened. So what makes you think then that nobody thinks you're smart then? Because there's a lot of people in the world, right? Just sort of talk it through and challenge it. So in the book, there's a whole process around that. It's actually, it's not really a dialogue. It's a more of an individual process for emptying this, what David called the physical, the mental, and the spiritual cup, emptying the cup. So it's about dealing with that body memory on a physical way. There's what we call disavowals. So you have a vow, then you have a disavowal. There's some forgiveness work. That's the spiritual side of things. And then there's a mental process as well, dealing with all that brain chatter right around stuff. So that would be the actual process that you could do. And I have something I call Resilient Teen. It's a resource that's 50 pages of this process, really designed for parents to work with their teen on this using that body memory process. But if you don't have that and you want to just say, how do I start? And that whole challenge, listening and challenging process really works great to start opening those doors.
Now a few words about Vibrant Family Education.
How many entrepreneurs and business owners start out on this journey to make a better life for their family, only to find that it took so much more time and effort than they were expecting that they had even less time for their family? I know I did.
At Vibrant Family Education, we want to help you reach your family goals while you're still building towards your business goals. We do this by bringing you the third leg of the stool to keep your family upright, family education development.
By bringing your children's education home, you will be able to model your work ethic and family values as you overcome obstacles and challenges to build your business. Instead of learning facts to pass tests, your children can be watching and seeing the dedication it takes to build your business and the legacy you want to create for their future. They will be able to witness the struggles and joys, the wins and the losses, and learn from you how to persevere and grow in life.
Instead of waiting until you get successful to spend more time with your family, start with the end goal in mind and bring your family home. Instead of trying to repair your family after you reach success, let us help you start achieving your family goals from the outset. Learn to be successful with your family now, and no matter what happens in the future, they will be better prepared for life, especially after watching how you cared for and built not only a business, but a healthy, happy, and successful family.
We offer a wide range of educational services, including how to easily get started with homeschooling. Come visit us at vibrantfamilyeducation.com and let us show you how. And now, back to our guest.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. As soon as they start talking, you're wrong. You're wrong.
No, that's not what she said.
I challenge you. You're wrong.
Not what she said. No, totally get it. No.
Yeah, no, but it's like it's questioning the belief with curiosity. It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Is there any other possibility? But also, you have to like not discount their feelings as well.
Yeah.
Of course. Oh,
Feelings
absolutely.
are real. The situation might not be. So
Right. Actually, I'm glad you put that in. I didn't want to, gloss over that, but because that is really an important part as well, because it's definitely real, for them. It's just like what I was just talking about with the child who's very young is you can get into the more mental part of stuff, but it's really important to acknowledge that emotional stuff that's going on around it, because that's where, if that's not acknowledged and dealt with, then that's where everything stops. right? I mean, we know people who are emotionally sort of stunted at the age at which they experience the trauma. So, so that is extremely important. I'm glad you brought that up.
And you keep talking about the work, and it's really funny because the work is so not work, but it's the hardest work you'll ever do, because as an adult, you now have to go sit in that feeling. You have to acknowledge that feeling. You don't have to have the memory, you don't have to have all of that, but you have to sit in that feeling and find it in your body and let it go, so that it's not. But so yeah, if you can do that as a child and let it go earlier.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, that's the work. It's like, that doesn't sound like much. It's like, it's incredibly not easy.
Yeah, especially when you have 40, 50 years
of
piled up.
of avoiding
Yes.
those feelings, of trying to, you know, put your feelings aside, of doing everything but feeling what you feel. And then suddenly to get this healing, you have to feel all of that stuff. It's like, you know, that's why it's so helpful to teach children how to feel and start to understand this stuff and start unpacking it way earlier.
Yes. And to also tell them how important it is to listen to their body, that their body is their friend. Because how many people, I mean, if you think about it, adult with adults, we talk about, especially older people, like it's all about how their body's failing them and letting them down, right? And you know, I think as kids, we're naturally tuned in to our body, and then it's conditioned out of us. So we have, instead of on-demand schedules as far as like eating, or even go to the bathroom. I mean, if you think about schedules at work, I mean, at school, especially, right? Or at work, and with meeting agendas, and I don't know, you know, a lot of times I've been in conferences where it's like, well, if you have to go to the bathroom, just leave the room. Like they were like, we're not going to, we have a lot to cover. We're not going to figure in breaks, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to miss anything. So
Right.
you know, it's just, it's everything over years and years and years of those types of experiences where being able to just, I mean, we start tuning out the signals from our body. And I really believe that long before anything ever becomes a disease, it shows up as an imbalance first. Everything. And if you're just not paying any attention, I mean, water is huge. I mean, one of the simplest things to take care of. And there's a whole book that I have right here. I have my library next to me here. There's a book I have called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And you know, in his point of view, and I don't know, it's kind of extreme. He thinks that almost everything is related to dehydration, but there's some truth in it. I'm sure that a lot of things that could be helped if people drank a lot more to lubricate things and all that. So yeah, from imbalances, and then to if kids are able to learn this, then they've got this toolbox, right, for the rest of their life. All of a sudden they start noticing something, they can go, gee, I wonder what's going on. I mean, I do it now. I'm like, okay, everything means something. So, you know, what is it? And I put this in the book too, that in my government work, I went to different assignments. So I'd be in an assignment for 2 to 4 years. And of course, I'd be really super good at it, right? And then it would be time to move on. So here I am looking at this gap between I'm really, really good at something, and then I'm going to be totally new at it again. All right. And am I? And then all those questions would come up for me. And can I do this? Because it would be at the next level as I continued to go to be promoted. And then it would be like, oh, can I really handle something that big? Can I handle that much money? Can I really, all these questions? And what would happen is I'd start beating up my feet, because feet are about moving forward, right? That's one of the clues. So your body, everything means something, right? And if your body, whenever you've got, not talking chronically as well, but even if you're talking about these little injuries I do to ourselves, like sometimes it's my fingers, right? Like I'm in the kitchen, like I have a week where how many times am I going to cut myself, you know, or get burned, you know, it's like, what's going on? So, but there are messages. Louise Hay, if anybody is familiar with her, a lot of her work was sort of equating that what's going on with certain parts of your body with what's going on for you emotionally or mentally, what's going on with that energy system, the chakra system, that because our body is an information and an energy system. And
So I would like to say that when I said that to do the work, you have to sit in the feeling, and you said you have to listen to the body. For me, that's kind of the same thing. So, so you say listen, I say feel. So that's kind of auditory versus kinesthetic, and there's another third way. So, however it shows up for you, it's not right or wrong if listening to your body doesn't make sense, if feeling your body doesn't make sense, or vice versa. It's learning to start humaning yourself. It's feeling what's going on with you, however you want to describe that.
Yeah. So it really is feeling. Like when I say listening, I mean, that's sort of how I term it, but you're right. I mean, it's not like your toe goes, hey, psst, you know, you're not really, right? You're not really here, but you are.
I gotta say though, the first time after you listen for a couple of years, the first time that stuff does start happening and they do start talking to you, which can happen, it's really funny and it's really weird, and you don't even believe it, but it does kind of start talking to you back. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So don't be alarmed if weird stuff starts happening. But also if it doesn't, it took years before something weird happened. So it was kind of weird.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering, as parents are kind of even walking around the house, kind of doing their own stuff, how could they model for their younger children? Because I know you were saying, working with the teens and stuff because they're logical and things like that. But like Herb was saying, if we can get it down lower, if we can model, if we can even plant those seeds when they're a little bit younger, I'm wondering what that would do and how that might help later.
Yeah, so again, I think from the very earliest possible. So when the baby is still in the tummy, is a great place to start with that, realizing that the baby is emotionally plugged in because neurotransmitters cross the placenta. So whatever's going on for me, if I'm worried about, and especially first time moms, right? Like, can I really afford this? Am I really going to be able to go, Mom, can I keep this little being alive? I remember having those thoughts. My son, I'm a mom. I have a 15-year-old and almost 12-year-old now. And I remember my son, who was born early. He was 3 pounds, 12 ounces when he was born. I got to take him home when he was 5 pounds. And I'm like, where's my medical staff? Really, I'm supposed to bring him home and take care of him. Really scary stuff. So, and that's okay. And it's not about, this is where it gets, it's kind of like what you were saying, Herb, about acknowledging the emotion, right? I don't want to get right and wrong into here at all. It's not about that. And so everyone needs to please understand that it's all good. It's all about life. It's the awareness that's the most important thing, right? And I had a teacher once who said, it's not about the birds that fly over your head, it's the ones that nest in your hair that you need to worry about. Right. So it's the one, it's about whether you're a mom of where you're contemplating and you're pregnant, you're contemplating, am I going to be a good mom? When you're thinking about the birth and how that's going to go, and then when the child is in those early, really formative years, things can happen, but just know that it's okay. And you can do a lot of damage control with a hug, right? I mean, just stop. Like if people would just, it's that, it's when you're not conscious and you let the emotions in, like, all of the stuff is played out, and then maybe somewhere down the line, all of a sudden you look up and you go, oh, what just happened? Like, wow, how did I get so out of control? And now I'm not talking to them, not talking to me, and they slammed the door, and like, what do I do now, right? So to do what you can to just not to be aware when things are starting to break down. That's why that awareness, if you have an acronym that works for you, to be able to count to that. There's a lot of wisdom in count to 10, right? So
I really liked, wow. And then I'm having a moment today. So I have brain damage. I have stuff come and go all the time. It's really interesting. But wow, it's just gone. I'm gonna skip it then. I'm gonna let
Okay.
you.
All right. But Kathi, no, I love what you were saying, and that point of, the emotions come and go. That's all correct. But it's the
There it
ones
is.
you
Let me go
perseverate
so I
on, the
don't
ones you
forget again.
really like
Let
about.
me go. So, you were
Yeah.
talking about there's no good or bad feelings. Well, there's no judgment in when they're talking about it. And
Right.
that goes also back to feelings. So many people, when they get angry, they think, oh, that's bad. It's bad being angry. It's not bad being angry. Angry is a signal.
yes.
And so that's as you start to again become conscious of your feelings and your thoughts, and you start to recognize it as a signal. Is like that anger is like, oh, I'm getting really angry. That means I need to yell and stomp around. It's like, no, that signal means you need to stop. So when you're driving somewhere and you see a stoplight, it's like, oh, green light, that's good. Red light, that's bad. It's like, it's not good or bad.
Yes.
It's go or stop. Anger, frustration isn't bad. That's a red light. That means stop. And while you might have an association to it, like, oh, dang it, another red light. Oh, dang it, I'm angry. It's like, you still need to stop and use that signal as an opportunity to look around and say, something's not right. Let's figure it out. And this signal needs to stop.
I love that. I think that's very useful. That red light, green light. I might steal that and use that and write about that, because I think that is really important. Like if we could have that awareness, right? That there's a word for that, metacognition. I think where you're kind of like able to kind of step back and observe yourself. I think that's really, really useful. And so that you're not, otherwise you're stuck, you're not in it, right? Put yourself more in kind of like the audience. If you're thinking of yourself on a stage, you're not the actor where I'm just playing my part, to be able to say, oh, this is something going on here. I think that's the best thing for those little ones, especially, and what for parents to do when they have those little ones, is to be as conscious as they can, because that is the period of time when these vows are being created. We're talking about the teens, and then it's like they're already created, and of course they can always create more beliefs, but they can. It's more about discovering, okay, what did I create when I was younger? And then one more thing to say about the teens too, is that when they do the work, it can help them be resilient through those teen years, right? Through less susceptible to peer pressure and bullying and all of those issues that we worry about as parents with teens. And then of course sets them up for an adult life where they have these tools to work with, right? And that they can, like, they get these signals, something's breaking down, and either finding, because this can help with financial issues, right? Relationships, health, career, all of it, because beliefs are behind all of it. But as far as talking about, again, the little ones, who they would, where you could explain it to them as much. You could say, what, or talk to them about, like, if they've got a little something, if they've got a breakdown, they're not regulated, but then you hold them through it and you get to the point, you might be able to pick up something. And if you hear something they say that sounds like it could be a belief, I would just write it down and decide whether or not, when it might be a time to maybe just talk to them about it. You need to use your judgment as to how much you think they'd be able to understand. But I would absolutely, if you hear it, like, write it down and keep a little file about it. And then as soon as you think it's possible, as early as that intervention really would be good, right? To be able to talk to them about it. I think, David created
let's talk about that a little bit. So we're working with a teen. We've discovered a vow or belief. What does the release look like? How do we start releasing the vow or belief? Because is this something that is like a visible thing? Would we be able to model this for the children, the releasing of stuff?
Well, it's again, it's in the book. It's a it's mind, body, spirit process. So there's a forgiveness aspect to it. Like there's anybody who might have been involved in, I mean, you can't go wrong with forgiving mom and dad, right? Or forgiving yourself. That's a really big one. It can be the birth team. It can be any number of people who have been in our lives. If in the course of talking about things that some whatever whoever you had difficulty with, that would be a good candidate for forgiveness. But the process, like the release part, is really, because we're talking about body memory. It's really literally based on science about the body, the cells recreating themselves, and that they carry this information. And if you don't do the work, it's gonna, like when the new cells are created, that same information goes coded in, right? And so the disavowal work that David created was so that you could, over a 90-day period, because that's how long it takes to change a habit, right? That's because of cell renewal. So that's the release. It's more of a sort of a personal experience. Certainly, as far as I'm forgiving, right? Because forgiving, of course, as we all know, is about ourselves. When we're forgiving someone else, when we're working with our own body memory, and we're working with our own sort of all the mental stuff, the brain chatter, because I can say I'm a powerful woman all day long, but if I've got my brain telling me, but remember the time when you poofed up over here, because it'll do it, right? Just like as soon as you as soon as you say something real, like an affirmation like that, like all that stuff's going to come up for you. So it's an opportunity to work with that content. So I guess what I was going to say about the children, because again, you don't, when they're little, they're not going to be able to do that kind of a process. And I'm even sure it's necessary, because if you catch them early enough, they haven't had a chance to really like get it lodged in, right, and reinforced. And I really think that putting a lot of love around it and in talking through it, giving them alternative options. So like when we're doing the mental work, we can get the brain chatter out of the way, and then we can actually adopt the affirmation, which is really a new belief, right? A new belief. I'm a powerful woman. That's a lot better than nobody cares what I have to say. So when they're really little and you talk to them at the level that they can understand, well, nobody wants to play with me, right? You talk it through, right, and all that, and then so then you talk about, maybe get them into experiences where people did, oh, how did that feel? Right, talk to them all about it, make it an enjoyable experience, talking about the times that they enjoyed people playing with them. And then that emotional, when one person rejected them, isn't what's paramount. It's actually, there's so much more of that interaction that I love, and that people do really love me. And so you can kind of move them through that emotional content and into a place of where they want to be. And you keep reinforcing it, of course, because you're with them every day.
Absolutely love that. Yeah, exactly. And educators who are listening, parents who are listening, grandparents, aunts, uncles, all of us need to work together to help these kiddos figure this all out, right? And show them, and be genuine when you're doing it, because they do have that spidey sense. And if you're just trying to build them up and you don't really believe it, they'll know it, and that's going to do harm again.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Make sure you truly believe it whenever you're helping them through it. Yeah.
Good point. Absolutely right.
Yeah, exactly. Kathi, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all these different points of view and everything. Would you please share your contact information? Because if there are families out there listening who are like, yep, I need to get a hold of Kathi and figure out how else to do this, the name of the book, etc., please share that information with us now.
Yeah, sure. So my website, kathysohn.com, and I'll spell KATHISOHN.com, has right at the top of the page has free gifts. So I encourage you to please, there's one that's called could your childhood be affecting your children? And then there's another one for parents of teens. And that's a free gift that talks about what I talked about today. And then the book is You Made It Up, Now Stop Believing It. If you scroll down on my site, there's a book trailer information about that. You can learn more about it. And then you can look at my site for coaching programs and other things as well.
Excellent. Thank you so very, very much. And of course, all of that information will be down in the show notes as well. So people know that they can just scroll down, find it, and get it there.
So what do you think? Could your childhood be affecting?
No, my childhood could never be affected.
Woo!
No, I mean, we can go lots of different places.
Well, that's a great title for a book. That's very catching.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, was there something that we didn't reach talking point to today that you wanted to reach? Is there something else that you wanted to share with our families?
No, I think we covered it all. In fact, I really love talking about working with the little ones. I'm going to put some more thought into that myself. You really inspired me.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. You know, the littles are my love. I taught second and third grade for almost 27 years. So that is where my heart is, those youngers.
And I really also like that you clarified that, you know, before 7, it's not super critical, and the young teens is really when they need that. Yeah. So that was really good information as well. So it's not always, get it younger, but maybe again, the framework younger, but teaching them how to do it later. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Fabulous understanding. So it's like, yeah, can't push this on 5-year-olds. So
no. Yeah, it's more the parent, the awareness, right, of parents. Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show.
And thank you for sharing your story. It really is a hero's journey that you've been on. And thank you for then bringing it out and sharing it with the world. So many people, when presented with this, they either will just talk about the problem or complain about it, but you've grabbed it and you're sharing it with the world, and you're continuing to do so. So you're still on your hero's journey and you're sharing it with the world. So thank you so very much for what you do, and thank you for being part of the solution.
Yeah. Thank you, Herb. I really appreciate that.
All right, audience, we're wrapping up for today, but please make sure that you like and share. There are families out there who need this information. So bringing education home and give it to other families and let them experience the resource, experience the love, the heartfelt connections that so many of our guests share with our audience. Let them know that this is there for them so that they can have happy, healthy, and successful children. Until next time, we're going to say bye for now.
Bye for now.
Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Christina. And together we bring you experts